And welcome to Regen Network community update for August 4th. I know people are hopping on here, but I'll say the things that either Dan or I say every week, which is welcome to community update. We try to do news for 15 minutes, network news for 15 minutes or less, and then open things up for conversation. There are a couple of things that probably warrant a little bit of conversation coming up, so we can have a little bit of Q&A about the upcoming BiCall upgrade to Regen Ledger 2.0. So I think there'll be a little bit of conversation to have about there. We have some updates from the engineering team to share with everybody. So yeah, we'll try to keep the information sharing from our end brief enough to be able to have some conversation. So with that all said, I will hop in and get us moving. All right. So Dan, do you want to take this slide?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yeah. So real quick before I even get into this, on Monday there was several validators that joined a call that I'd organized, and that was really good. There was a couple of new folks, so thank everybody for showing up to that one. This is, in my mind, pretty important, so I really appreciate everybody's help in the validator channel. And yeah, thanks again for showing up to that call. So yeah, proposal number 3, we're going to be, or it aims to increase the active validator set to 75 active seats. And the voting will end on this Friday, actually, August 6, 2021 at 2200 UTC, in the middle of my day, which I appreciate. Thank you. So it's currently passing. We've got just about 60% voter turnout, which is great. I always like to see that number even higher. So if you haven't voted yet, please go out and take a look at that proposal. Do your own research, make sure that you're okay with it. If you vote yes, if you have any concerns, you still have time to discuss that in the forum. I'll actually drop the link to the forum. I didn't do that, but yeah, so this is a parameter update, and if it passes, it'll just update automatically. So anybody who's waiting, that's been waiting, or is already ready to go, you more than likely will be just pushed right into the active set. So make sure that you guys are up and running. If you do have any questions, check out that validator channel on Discord, and me or others, our community has been really helpful. So thanks again to you guys. We'll be able to help you get started. So yeah.
All right.
Does it make sense, Dan, to just mention the Anika bug, or I don't know if you already spoke about that, but just that there's some caching issues there?
Yeah, actually, thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, Anika seems to be a bit behind, and there seems to be some caching issues. There was actually, it's having there's some strange behavior happening there. I actually thought that somebody was jailed, which was actually not the case. So I'll reach out to Neil again and see if he can help with that. But yeah, I would go ahead, Corey.
I was just going to say the moral of the story is, I mean, I would assume for most of our validator community, people are comfortable in the CLI. And so like, if you're wanting to check that your validator is ready to go, you know, the best case is going to be running CLI commands to query for your validator. And if it doesn't exist, you know, that likely means that it, you know, didn't have any tokens bonded to it and was removed even as an unbonded validator. And so you should create a new validator for that. That's our current understanding of how this works. So yeah, if the Anika like status seems like potentially a bit questionable for when querying your validator, just like go for the CLI commands, and that should be a more better guaranteed way to understand what's going on.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, just do the regen status, and if you can just grep your voting power and make sure that you're not at 0. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Well, Anil, do you want to speak to that at all? I see you're on.
Yes. So yeah, the validator was inactive. So they said their node went down quite few blocks. So it was not showing up in the active validator set. And then And one another validator was, it was removed from the state. So they were not able to delegate to that validator. So we updated Explorer to, not show the validators which are removed from the state. Previously, we were showing all the validators in the inactive set. Yeah, we have updated that as well.
Oh, great.
Cool. Thank you, Anil. All right. And next, a really exciting conversation to have about an upcoming upgrade proposal to move to Regen Ledger version 2.0. So I'd actually like to hand it over to Corey and maybe Ryan. I don't know how you guys are planning on chatting with the engineering team to just talk us through a little bit what's moving, what this upgrade is about, when we can expect it and what the next steps are. And Corey, you can just tell me and I will move to the next slide as you desire.
Cool. Yeah, I can start with this. So yeah, we're getting the software engineering team at R&D is preparing for Regen Ledger 2.0. We're targeting feature completeness by the end of this week, and up next we'll be beginning a process for an internal audit and testnet cycle. The kind of later stage of that will likely involve the validator set actively testing an upgrade. So, we'll make sure to be coordinating with the larger community when the time comes for that. In terms of feature set, this is going to upgrade Regen Ledger to be using the Cosmos SDK, the 0.43, which is going to include kind of prepackaged in it authorization and fee grant, two new modules that the Regen Network team worked on over the past year or so in parallel with the Stargate upgrade last year. So that's been a big long coming milestone for us to have these two new modules enabled, not just on the SDK, but for the first time in Regen Ledger. And then we're also going to be adding in this upgrade our first domain specific module, the eco credits module on mainnet. Eco credits module has been enabled, or it has been available in Regen Ledger if you were making your own local experimental build. We have two configurations for Regen Ledger, one where you can build kind of experimental modules that we're still testing out with. So the eco credit module has been available through that build path for quite some time, but for this upgrade, we're actually going to be like bringing it onto the mainnet chain. And there are two kind of like high level upgrades that we're making to the existing feature set that I think are worth bringing forward to the larger community. One is that we're actually planning to launch this as a permissioned, on a permission basis, so that credit classes, new classes of sort of carbon credits can actually only be made by a set of whitelisted addresses that are curated through governance, through on-chain governance. The reason for doing that is because, frankly, as much as we've gotten to a point where we feel quite confident in the design of the eco credit module, we already know of a few important kind of upgrades to our data model that we're going to want to provide in the next several months. Things like within the context of Regen Ledger, we have very often with a credit class and a credit vintage that'll be issued, there's a corresponding project. And so, we have questions around, do project IDs make sense to be an entity that lives on chain? And, as we're like refining those specifications, it's going to be really important that whoever is issuing credit classes in this first batch from the initial upgrade is working quite closely with our engineering team, so that when we upgrade to Regen Ledger 3.0 and have this more richer data model, it'll be a more streamlined process where we'll be able to work tightly with all of those issuers of credit classes to upgrade their corresponding vintages with the new characteristics of the upgraded data model. So since we kind of already know that there are going to be some kind of larger design changes coming, we're thinking that it might make sense to initially launch the eco credit module on a permission basis, so that we're kind of working in a more coordinated way. If you can just go back. I wanted to just say, I think there was one, and then credit types on chain. Yeah, this is the one other thing that I think is worth mentioning, which will actually also be a governance parameter, is rather than saying, oh, there's no kind of distinction of what a credit is, we actually are introducing the concept of a credit type where, we're indicating and curating through governance the unit that a given credit class corresponds to. So our kind of thinking around the first credit type will be that, it's about carbon credits, and we'll be able to say like, okay, there's one credit type, it is carbon credits, and it's measured in kilograms or in tons. And governance will be able to control basically what that whitelist of credit types is. And then any issuers or designers of credit classes will be able to create new classes under any corresponding credit type in that whitelist. So those are the two kind of larger changes that we're making for this next upgrade. I think we can go to the next slide now. And so, now shifting the conversation to what this means for governance, we're going to start with a signaling proposal, kind of detailing the stuff that I just talked through on this slide, as well as like a proposal for the initial values of these on-chain parameters that we're introducing. So one of them being the permission credit class creation, which I just discussed, and the other one being a kind of initial credit type of the carbon credit with a set unit. And also we'll be detailing in this signaling proposal, R&D's kind of proposal for what is our process for adding new addresses to the credit class designer whitelist, to kind of get an understanding of the community's buy-in for that. Then second, there'll be a software upgrade proposal, which will actually be the technical proposal for implementing Regen Ledger 2.0 and migrating to that. It'll include the actual binary hash, as well as an upgrade height for automatic upgrades. So, once this proposal goes live, we're doing the upgrade, or sorry, once this proposal is accepted, we will be on track to do an upgrade at a designated time. And then after that, we kind of hope that there may be this follow-up or flurry of credit class designer proposals. R&D definitely intends to put forth one of these on behalf of Regen Registry to put kind of ourselves forward as a whitelisted credit class designer, but we'd love to encourage other organizations to do the same and start a dialogue around that basis, so that we're kind of creating a tight-knit community of initial credit class designers through that process. That's it for these.
I just needed to unmute myself. Thank you, Corey. That is fantastic. Great update. I'm just going to pause for a sec and see if there's any questions from, that's a fairly, yeah, there's a bunch of moving parts here. So it's maybe a good moment to just pause and see if folks have comments or questions. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, we can revisit at the end.
Hi there. This is Patrick here from Akiktakat. I'm curious if there is an example of a credit class anywhere on GitHub or somewhere that we could look at and see, oh, here's what designing a credit class looks like in code. Obviously, there's the whole scientific and social and economic process behind it, but what does it look like in code?
So, like, to actually instantiate a credit class, you're basically running a CLI command, and you have the option of providing, at least in the current implementation, an arbitrary set of metadata along with that credit class, and a finite list of issuers, which are regen addresses that you're giving the explicit permission to issue credits of your credit class. I think that like the parts where creating a credit class is more complicated doesn't really have much to do with what we're requiring in terms of code at this point. It really is more about the scientific component of it and linking that up with a methodology. I do believe that our registry team does have some pages that are in development right now for like what it means for what this distinction is between a credit class and a methodology, what it means to be kind of partnering with Regen Registry and creating those. But I don't have specific like timelines on when those will be public. But I think they should be available quite soon, and we should probably time that closely with this.
And in terms of the code side, it is in docs.regen.network, the eco credit module, sort of, like in that sort of minting of credits, etc., I believe is documented, Patrick, from the code perspective.
Yeah, and I would say that we're in the process of making upgrades to this because currently the documentation is not fully up to date with Regen Ledger 2.0 and the upgrades that I've discussed here. So there are a few new things that you have to do, like actually designate the credit type. And then I think some of the more concrete things to talk about are when you're actually in the process of issuing credit batches. There's a few required fields like a start date and an end date. We've added dates now as top level fields for credit batches, as well as a project location. But yeah, Ryan is in the process of working on those documentation upgrades, and yeah, hopefully we can definitely be sharing that with the community and with you, Patrick, once those are available.
And it looks like we didn't. Also, it's important to note that there will be a test net spinning up with this feature set to test it and go through sort of the pre-launch quality control checklist, as well as make it possible. And so there's sort of going to be these tandem processes of quality assurance and control, testing and auditing, test net. Everybody can look at things and documentation that are sort of moving, that before there's a fully baked governance proposal about bringing this up on chain, all of those things will sort of be going through a full life cycle. And just letting everybody know that feature completeness is looking like it will be happening by end of week, as Corey mentioned. So that means that the testnet can actually be upgrading into having this eco credit module and people being able to do active testing, and us doing active testing of it, probably by sometime early next week. So
yeah, and I'll make sure to update you guys and so you're aware of when it's happening.
Do you, Corey or Ryan, do you want to speak at all about the testnet stuff? Just any additions there?
I think that we're still in the early days of planning out actually what the timeline will look for that. I mean, I think the lens that we're holding on the engineering team is ensuring that all of the functionality is complete and testing that functionality. But there is another angle, which is more making sure that the validator community is like up to speed and like sufficiently prepared for the actual upgrade. I think what we're preparing for is more that first half initially, where next week we would be hoping to get the testnet booted up and ready to do an upgrade, but we still have to implement the actual upgrade handler before we'll have a version that's able to perform that in a testing environment. And then once we've done that upgrade, I would imagine we can be doing a lot of feature testing against that live network, but there will probably be a more like coordinated upgrade with the validator community that we'll want to coordinate tightly with our lead validators on.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Dan.
So yeah, I'll just go over this quickly. I already mentioned this in the last call. So basically, we're coming up with a community incentives program, which is really just tuned towards growth of the community itself. So if you're interested, or if you know anybody who's interested, we're looking for bloggers, meme creators, different mods, things like that. So I'll have some more details coming out about this. I'm actually currently working on a blog. But if you're interested already, or if you know somebody who's interested, I know some people have reached out to me already. Yeah, feel free to DM me, and I can kind of fill you in on the process.
Great. Thank you, Dan. All right. Just another update here from your end, Dan?
Yeah, just another quick update. Nothing super important for the validators, but just kind of following community growth. So 2 weeks ago I did this, and we've actually almost doubled or over doubled the number of active wallets that we have, to over 5,400 wallets, which is incredible growth. We are still looking good with Telegram members. Our Discord member counts are looking good, and we're adding Twitter followers. So we're actively growing, and we're continuing to grow. And again, the total on-chain wallets being over 5,400 is incredible in my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. As always, you can go to the public Notion roadmap for just what's moving and where it's moving in the various different verticals from Regen Ledger. Also, the Cosmos SDK team sort of maintains what's happening over there. Our science team and our work and open team are all represented. So with that, I will turn off screen sharing, and yeah, let's open it up. I especially think there may be worthwhile conversations to have around the BICAL, Regen Ledger 2.0 upgrade process that was sort of outlined by Corey. Their conversations, desires about how the test net is run, for instance, or just, folks expressing, whether it's excitement or restraint or ideas about how to sort of, engage with this big, exciting process. Pete asks if there'll be chain downtime during the upgrade. It should be fairly minimal. I believe that through running the upgrade handler on Cosmovisor, we have done sort of full upgrades like this in testnet environments with more validators in less than a minute. But there will be a little bit of downtime as we shift over to a new chain, essentially.
Yeah, I can also mention that this is actually the, prior to the 0.4.3 release, which is what this will be based on, all SDK-based blockchains performing upgrades would have to do a full Genesis export. And then, so exporting the entire application state to a Genesis JSON file, then performing a migration as an offline process to migrate that JSON file from the old version state to the new version state, and then booting up the new chain against the new Genesis file. That whole process is no longer necessary. As in 0.4.3, we have the new ability to provide in-place store migrations as an upgrade path. So that's what we're going to be doing for this upgrade on Regen Ledger, which should drastically reduce the downtime.
And the work of the prep work that validators need to do.
Yep.
Fair.
Yep. It should be a process where we're communicating with everyone to make sure that they've got Cosmovisor configured and running, which is a supervisor process that can be supporting in the actual upgrade and swapping of binaries. And then, making sure that's all set up, and then just kind of being attentive and watching the process unfold when the halt height is hit. It's ideally what it should look like.
Fantastic. Great question, Pete. Other questions? Comments?
Patrick here again. I saw the messages from Dan saying that the proposal to the validator set was passing, and I thought, well, that's curious. I thought that passing required 66.6% or 0.7% of the vote to pass, and it's at 50 something. So I just went and checked the governance parameters on Annika, and quorum is 40% and threshold is 50%. So, which also changes my understanding of network security in terms of how many validators it takes to control the network. So I was at something that I've just learned, and I was surprised to see.
Yeah, so those are adjustable parameters. The hard network security rules are Byzantine fault tolerance, which is 66 plus 1% in order to make a network change actually has to participate. But the parameters are based on sort of our social agreement around the signaling process around a governance vote. So if people voted one way and then refused to do an upgrade or something like that, the hard facts are Byzantine fault tolerant sort of network, 33% plus 1 to halt the chain, 66% plus 1 to sort of keep the chain moving in a particular state or upgrade it and change it. And so you could set the governance passing proposals to just mimic that directly. That is not how they're set. They're set with the thresholds that you've seen.
So basically,
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
yeah, so kind of my understanding is basically 66 plus 1% of the validators have to actually upgrade their software. So they have to be actively using the Cosmo Visor to, well, I guess it's a parameter change. So in this case, not really, but kind of in that new upgrade. From my understanding, is that right, Corey? Yeah. So I mean, really, what it comes down to is the voting process, since it includes everybody. That's where the quorum lies.
It's a little bit different. The param change will automatically just update, right?
Right.
People could choose to run a different version with different parameters, I suppose. The 66% and 33% are more hard sort of facts of reality when we're performing, you know, what essentially is a hard fork with a major network upgrade, like the one that is proposed for Regen Ledger 2.0, where you actually have to sort of like halt and migrate state to a new blockchain that then has, you know, so yeah. Patrick, does that sort of answer your questions and elucidate things there?
Yeah, it does. I got to the discussion, I guess, a little bit, but I made a post on forum about the proposal. Realized that it was that 50% was the threshold. I did some of the economic or financial analysis that people were saying would be interesting, and there hasn't been any response on the forum. I'd also seen maybe it's the same caching bug that you're mentioning, and Annika asked about. So I guess that parameter maybe explains why people kind of abandoned the forum thread by the time it got to 50%.
Got it. I'm going to just screen share here so that everybody can see who's on the call what you did. So Patrick, a couple days ago, and I admit, just getting back online, I have not gotten a chance to review this. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis of the analysis?
Okay, if you go up to the beginning of the first post, the beginning of the first post, I took data from Annika, I think that it will be correct. So that first chart is the current distribution of stake among validators. And then in the little red bars behind it is the self bond percent. Just also to give a bit of an idea, sometimes that's a useful number to look at, like how validators are self-financing versus getting delegations from other addresses.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they might be holding their own tokens in a different address. So
yeah.
Anyways, so I looked at that and I thought, based on that analysis, I was looking at how many validators does it take from the top in order to reach 33 or 66%. The second chart isn't as useful because I made an updated version of it in the post below. And then the bottom of the screen, you can see there's a link to the spreadsheet that has all of this data in it, if anybody wants to run their own simulations with better statistical models or something. So let's see. Right there. So at the bottom of the page there, you can see the current veto power is the top 6 validators with 35%. So I guess actually it's the top 6 validators have the capacity to halt the chain, whereas it would be more than the top 6 to veto a proposal. And then at the end of these last 2 charts are, if you take the long tail of the current like validators 21 through 50, if we look at that chart at the bottom, and you extend it sort of imaginarily following that, just that tail, and then redistribute the current regen that's the currently bonded regen among all of those new validators plus the existing validators, then you end up with about a 5% loss to the existing validators. But again, who knows how delegations will actually happen with the expanded validator set. And there was this question about financial viability of would this impact financial viability. So that last chart, I took the approximate income of our validator, which is currently ranked number 12 at Kiktakat, and extrapolated what the hard values that I know we have for this month, and I extrapolated it to the other validators, assuming that they're that there's a consistent relationship between the amount that they have staked and their commission percentage and how much they're generating per month, what their income is. So that shows that the number one validator with $2.10 per gen, the number one validator is making just over $20,000 a month. And with a 5% decrease, they would still be making over $20,000 a month. Whereas at the low end of things, you can't really tell on the chart because of the level of detail, but those are around $600 a month of income. On the very end might be $300 a month of income. So in terms of thinking about what kind of validator operation somebody's running, also, of course, it depends on how much commission they're charging, whether they're validating for more than just this chain, whether validating for Regen Network is a primary source of income for their family or for their business. Lots of different that behind the question of is $600 or $8,000 a month or $20,000 a month financially sufficient to run a meter. But anyways, I think Chris from Chainflow had said, hey, it'd be cool to see a financial analysis. And so I thought, well, hey, I agree, that would be cool. So I put those together. And like I said, that's all in that spreadsheet. If anybody's in playing with the numbers or making more accurate predictions, although I think it's kind of impossible.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, Patrick. Thanks for sharing that information with the community and that analysis. And yeah, really, really cool to see that visualized. Great. Well, we're a couple minutes past the hour. I've got to go hop on a working group on clearing carbon and environmental claims clearinghouse rules with the USDA and other stakeholders. So I'm a couple of minutes late. I'm going to hop off and dive into that. Really appreciate everybody on the call, and see you all in a couple of weeks with another Regen Network community update. So ciao.
Thank you. Bye.